I just can't help it. I'm one of those people who hibernates in the winter, and I'm just not ready on January 1st. So now, almost March, I finally feel ready to go through my financial goals for 2025. 2025 is a pretty big year for me, financially speaking, in the sense that my work life has changed. A lot fewer of my days are spent working, and I have a lot more days or freedom, and it'll be my first full year like that, if all goes well. And also something huge this year is I want to transition from being a renter. I've been a renter for most of the last 20 years, and I would like to transition away from being a renter and to being a property owner, which will absolutely have a big impact on my finances. So some of these goals are going to be or have been implemented right away, starting January 1st, and some will be implemented later when I do purchase a property. About a month ago, I watched Emmy Lucas's Plan With Me video where she talked about her low buy year for 2025, and I love her so very much. I think her channel is amazing. Before she dove into her goals, she started off by focusing on what she already did right to frame herself in a positive mindset and say, hey, you're already doing great, before she goes through her list of all of these, more or less shortcomings or things that you want to improve on. And I thought that was such a great idea. I'm going on year 9 of trying to get my financial shit together. I've paid off 6 figures of debt, so I've got some run time when it comes to personal finances and how I handle them. So there are definitely some things that I feel like I already do really right that have helped me get to the place where I am today, where work is so optional for me. And so I do want to briefly go through those real quick too. First things first, you already know what I'm gonna say, but I budget. And probably more importantly, I go back at the end of the month and I review that budget. I'm not super strict with myself by any means, but after 9 years of spreadsheeting my finances, and I understand pretty much what my normal operating budget is, but I still am surprised by certain things every single month, even as long as I've been doing it. And so I think it's still incredibly important to always, no matter how good you think you might be, budget and review it. It's the only way you're actually gonna know what's coming in and what's going out. Another thing I think I do really well is live below my means, because I understand how much is coming in and how much is going out through all of the different avenues. I make sure I live below my means, and I'm able to do that by budgeting and reviewing it. The other thing I do is I proactively avoid monthly payments. There are absolutely no sneaky subscriptions or anything that creep up into my bank accounts, because my eyeballs are on my bank statements. Every penny I spent that month is added up, and so I see it. So nothing sneaks in there. I hate monthly payments, and so I am incredibly vigilant about avoiding them. In today's data age, it's really easy to get signed up for things and forget about them, or they're really small so you don't notice them. I think that happens a lot. So the only way to plug that leaky hole is by going through your bank statements every month. I also don't take on new debt. I hate monthly payments. I hate debt. The only debt I have left is my federal student loans, and that's all I'm gonna say about that right now. I don't want any other payments. And then something that has been insanely important to me over the last couple of years is I have a 12+ month emergency fund. And in addition to that, I also have sinking funds where I save up for big ticket planned expenses, like my annual expenses sinking fund, and unplanned expenses like my car, vet, and medical sinking fund. That emergency fund alone brought me absolutely the most mental peace I have ever felt about my finances, and I can never overstate how important that has been to me ever since. And then last but not least, I invest in a 401k with company match. Even though I am a contract position, I work very, very infrequently, so it's not much. I still make sure to do it. And now, before I do get into the 2025 goals, I want to do a quick recap on 2024 because it was such a year of upheaval and change, and it'll really provide a lot of context for why my goals are what they are for 2025. It was a bit of a financial whirlwind. 2024 started off pretty spicy. January 21st, I was asked to jump on a call with HR and was very unexpectedly furloughed. And that very sudden, very immediate loss of income was incredibly scary. And then I had to navigate the unemployment system for the first time, as well as the job market at the time, which was horrifying. I don't know if it still is, but it was. There's so much out there, but no one's actually really hiring. They're just like raking in a bunch of resumes. So that was crappy. I ended up taking a job that is not new to me. I did this back in 2008 to 2010. Between undergrad and grad school, I'm a fisheries observer on commercial fishing vessels. I'm a contract position and I'm paid per day at sea. During the interview process, I was led to believe I was going to have so much work, so many days at sea that I would have to probably be turning them down left and right. And the position, they wanted me in Gloucester, Massachusetts, so I moved from Hampton, New Hampshire to Gloucester. And unfortunately, right away, it was very evident that I was not actually going to be able to get the amount of work that I was led to believe I would be. And so I immediately started to panic because I could tell I was not going to be able to make rent every month based on what I was actually getting for work. So I paid the equivalent of 1 month's rent to break my lease after 3 months. And so in August, I moved from Gloucester to Maine to my aunt's house. Luckily, she was very gracious and had plenty of room in her house. And she said, you and the cats can come stay here while you figure out the next step. Moving in with my aunt immediately drastically reduced my cost of living expenses and therefore reduced the amount of days of work that I actually needed to do to cover all of my expenses. Because I already have a low-cost lifestyle, I only have to work 2 days per month to cover all of my living expenses. 3 days per month, and I've got a little bit I can even set aside for more savings or more investing if I'd like. And please know, it's not about not wanting to work. I actually love having one foot still in the marine science realm. You know, I have all these damn student loans for a reason. I love marine science. I love the commercial fisheries world. I've always been my grad research was specialized in commercial fisheries bycatch. So I love that I get to still be a part of that world and interact with fishermen. It's just the work-life balance that I have when it comes to having so much choice in the number of days that I work. Having a work-life balance that has so much emphasis on the life side has just opened up so much free time to do the things that I really want to be doing. It's not that I just want to be lazy and sit on the couch. My body craves physical movement, manual labor, being outside. I'm always hiking. I'm always walking in the woods. I want to chop wood, shovel snow. Like, I want to move. I want the option to have my days free where I can make those choices and I can go do the things that bring me enjoyment. Not sitting at a desk at a computer or whatever. And so now I have this balance of having so many free days to do all the things that I love. But then when I do have to work, I'm working in the commercial fisheries world that I actually enjoy being in when the balance is in the correct ratio that feels right for me. So like I said, I moved in with my aunt in August, and honestly, it took a couple of months for the stress of everything that had happened up until then to subside, because, you know, job loss, unemployment, new job, moving twice. It was just, it was a lot, and it was friggin' expensive. But once the stress did subside and I was able to see everything clearly and I saw how happy I was and I stopped hating work, that changed everything. Then all of the thoughts started flowing about how can I maintain this? How can I keep this level of happiness, this work-life balance that feels amazing? Enter my 2025 goals. First up, set up a sinking fund for taxes. That one I did start January 1st. And this is for gig work, side work, YouTube income, things like that. Things that are not taxed beforehand. I'm setting aside 25% of any YouTube income that I make, and I'll do the same for any gig work if I do Uber Eats or Instacart or anything like that. And I'll have to look up the exact amount, but some of the profit from the sale of the rental property, if there are any, I will set aside for taxes. And then when the time comes, property taxes. The absolute next thing that needs to happen, which is like so close. Sell the rental property. Honestly, it's just been a drain mentally, financially. I closed on it April of 2020, and it's just been a wonderful learning opportunity, but just not my jam. And it's long distance for me, so of course that was a major added complication. But if all goes well and I get anything even remotely close to asking price when we get it listed here, it still could be quite profitable for me. So I'm not like writing it off totally yet, but it's been a process. So hopefully that can get on the market soon. But the most important thing about selling the rental property is minimizing my financial risk overall, and certainly to minimize my finances. And by that I mean the property expenses as well as like the business expenses that come with owning the LLC and the real estate trust for all of the business reasons and personal protection. Those things come with fees as well. Once the property is gone though, then I can reallocate my real estate savings, which has been acting as the property's emergency fund, and reallocate that towards purchasing my own property for myself to live in. And there's always going to be some reason to say, oh, now's not the right time based on the market, whatever. I don't care. I mean, I do a little bit, but really, it doesn't matter. The point is to get out of the rental market. Purchasing my own property is really the only way that I can see that I can take back as much control as possible over my cost of living expenses. Rents everywhere are insane, and every apartment that becomes available has a waiting list a mile long. It's just crazy. I just don't want to have to keep competing in and dealing with the rental market. And here in New England, there is still totally possible, if you're willing to get, away from the coastline and away from cities and towns, you can actually find pieces of land for less than $2,000 an acre, less than $1,000 an acre if you're really willing to get crazy with it. And since I'm not location dependent anymore, I can get a little crazy here. And my plan is to hopefully buy something in cash. And yeah, there's always going to be property taxes that are probably going to increase most years, but even between taxes and insurance, that's still way more affordable than a year of rent. And yeah, the cheapest things are going to be parcels of raw land. And yes, there is going to be potentially huge upfront costs to getting a piece of raw land livable. Right away, there's the structure over my head, utilities, sewer, water, driveway. 5 really big ticket items right away that each independently can very quickly be tens of thousands of dollars on their own. So yeah, swinging all this cash is going to be maybe not possible, but I'm not even worrying about that right now. There's so many steps in between like where I am to get to that point. So it's like nothing I'm worrying about at the moment. Right now, sell the rental property. And of course, I was hoping that the sale would have happened by now, but it's okay. That is another reason I wanted to stay with my aunt, so that when I moved back to Maine in August, I wasn't jumping into another year lease that I was going to be locked into until this coming August. Next up, I want to max out my Roth for 2025. It is at now a $7,000 contribution limit for the single Pringles. So I would like to bring retirement investing back into my priority view. I don't have enough in retirement savings at this time to technically be coast fire or coast financially independent, retired early, because I at this point would not be okay after 65 living on just what I have invested. So I do want to bring focus back to that again. I'm not saying contributing to my Roth every year is going to make the difference, but it will certainly help, and it's incredibly important. I've just been neglecting it. And the next goal is to max out my HSA, or my health savings account, which is at a $4,300 contribution limit for the singles. The job that I have now is a contract position, and it does not offer health insurance. So I am on my own for that through the marketplace. I didn't mention it earlier, but that was actually something else that happened in 2024 when I did take this job and I was forced to deal with the marketplace for the first time. Health insurance has always been something that has scared me to death, and so I always really avoided looking into it and how the cost of it was based. I just had always heard nightmare stories, so I was scared to death that insurance was going to cost me like $800 a month or more. I truly thought that. I don't know why, but 2024, since it kind of like shoved me into the need to do that, it's obviously not anywhere near $800. I do get a lot of federal aid because my income is low, but you know, current atmosphere in the political arena in this country, federal aid is being cut left and right. So if for some reason that ends up impacting healthcare, I might not be able to afford health insurance anymore. And so I think beefing up my HSA as much as I can is going to be critically important. And now this next goal is less tangible, but insanely important to me. And that is voting with my dollars in a way that feels right for me. And for me, what that looks like is shopping zero waste as much as I can, prioritizing local absolutely every time I'm able to, shopping secondhand instead of always buying new, borrow, trade, barter, focusing on local economy, keeping my money in my local economy, avoiding purchases to the extent possible that support the 1%. Voting with your dollars, in my opinion, is arguably the most important and impactful vote that we have the option to make, because it's a direct exchange of currency with immediate impact, and it's done multiple times a day, or hopefully less. I am definitely going to be talking about voting with my dollars so much more this year as I transition to a life that is more simple, more basic, more in the woods, more remote, more hopefully community based. I would love that. And that ties into my last financial goal for 2025, which is becoming more self-sufficient. Gardening, foraging, mending, repairing, and fixing things instead of just buying new. And learning new skills along the way so that you can do those things in the future. Consumerism is so rampant right now, and I think we need to back away from it. And I'm absolutely going to be talking a lot more about consumerism this year as well. I think it's a really important topic. But all of those things that I mentioned will reduce my reliance on outside sources for goods and services, which is definitely going to reduce my expenses overall. You guys know having a garden this year is like, probably the number one thing I'm looking forward to. Like, my heart's looking forward to it, my mind is looking forward to it, my body is looking forward to it, and I just cannot wait to see how much of an impact it has on my grocery budget every month. Next to the housing expense, food is definitely my second largest expense, and I want to try to reduce that as much as possible by growing my own food. And for the items that I'm not able to grow myself, then pivoting and focusing on the local sources in my community, my local farmers market, the local veg stands at the end of people's driveways. Those are my favorite. I break for veg stands at the end of driveways. Because I've been spreadsheeting my budget for so long, I can look back over years worth of my spending data and see how much this garden could potentially impact that and really drastically reduce how much I'm spending on groceries. And also, since I do plan to live in a more remote location to have a cheaper cost of living, I'm probably not going to be that close to grocery stores like I have been for years, and therefore will probably have less like flyby and incidental spending. And I can tell you right now, that's going to be the case. I think a lot about my food budget is going to be changing this year. I really can't wait for that. So subscribe and follow along if any of that sounds good for you. I am so excited to start sharing gardening content and self-sufficiency things and living off the land, and just really dive into the finances of self-sufficiency and how much can I really reduce my living expenses and save money. I'm really looking forward to this year. 2024 really felt like it kicked me in the head. Like it was crappy while all of those things were happening, but to be here now and in hindsight, now that it's all kind of over and the dust has settled a little and I've found this happiness and this beautiful balance that works really well for me in every level, it's so exciting. Because last year was really crappy and felt financially draining, even though like I still am blown away I didn't have to touch my emergency fund through that whole year. Like, I'm so proud of myself for that. It was just so much upheaval and change and steps that I had been wanting to take but didn't know how or didn't feel like they were going to happen for years yet. Like having this work-life balance and being able to scale way back. And I don't know, it sucked so much, but towards the end of the year there, it brought me the clarity I needed to see like everything is okay. You're on the right path. Just things happened in 2024 that kicked you there a lot sooner than you expected. And things definitely don't look how I thought they would. But that's life, right? You know, you have a plan and life says differently. To finally be out of the chaos and stress of 2024, I feel so much relief and so much better about my ability to navigate that kind of a year. And I think the last few months of the year after I moved in with my aunt, it was all incredibly eye-opening, and it needed to happen in that way, I think, because I don't know, it was time. I think it was just time to be happy and be okay with being happy and not worry about other people's judgment of what brings me happiness and what I want my work-life balance to look like and what I want my life in general to look like. So what if I want to wake up and bake bread and go hang out in the garden all day? Like that sounds so lovely to me. Cook from scratch, from veggies I've grown myself, hang out with the cats, watch the birds out the window. It's just, that's all I want. A low-key, simple and quiet life that's not based on consumerism or worry about, you know, the economic landscape. Like, yeah, it's wild times here in America, and I'm very like apolitical, so I don't want to go into it, but I don't know. Things feel a little uneasy. I don't know. What feels safe and what also happens to feel happy, like growing my own food and learning new skills and reducing reliance on outside things. I feel like in my heart, those things are really important going forward. But yeah, better late than never. Those are my goals for the year. I'm pretty excited about 2025. It's going to be a really beautiful year, so I hope you stick around. Thank you guys so much for hanging out with me. I'll see you again very soon.